When the First World War began in 1914, few believed it would become one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. By 1918, Europe was devastated, entire empires had collapsed, millions were dead, and nations were exhausted. But the war did not simply end on the battlefield, its conclusion came through tense diplomacy, conflicting national interests, and the creation of one of the most controversial documents in history, the Treaty of Versailles. This is the story of how World War I finally ended. The final year of war. By early 1918, Germany launched one last desperate offensive, the Spring Offensive, hoping to defeat the Allies before American troops arrived in massive numbers. Although initially successful, the offensive eventually stalled. The German army was exhausted, supplies were running out, and morale collapsed. Meanwhile, American soldiers arrived in Europe at a rate of 10,000 per day, tipping the balance. By the autumn of 1918, Germany's allies had fallen one by one. Bulgaria surrendered first, followed by the Ottoman Empire, and then Austria-Hungary shattered into smaller nations. Germany, left alone and facing internal revolution, realized the war was lost. The armistice, the 11th of November 1918. Germany requested a ceasefire. On the morning of the 11th of November 1918, deep inside a forest in Champagne, France, German representatives signed the armistice agreement with the Allies. At exactly 11 a.m., the guns fell silent. For the first time in 4 years, the world heard something unfamiliar: peace. But the armistice was only temporary. The final and most important step was crafting a permanent peace treaty. And that responsibility fell to the leaders who gathered at the Paris Peace Conference. The Paris Peace Conference, January 1919. In January 1919, diplomats from more than 30 countries arrived in Paris to design a new world. But, in reality, the fate of the defeated powers, especially Germany, would be decided by the Big Three. Woodrow Wilson, President of the United States, idealistic and focused on creating a peaceful future. Georges Clemenceau, Prime Minister of France, determined to weaken Germany forever. David Lloyd George, Prime Minister of Britain, walking a tight balance between justice and practicality. These three men had different visions. Wilson's 14 points. Wilson wanted a fair peace. His most important idea was the formation of a League of Nations, an international organization to prevent future wars. Clemenceau's demands. Clemenceau, known as the Tiger, wanted revenge. France had suffered more than any other allied nation. He wanted Germany punished harshly, its land taken, its army destroyed, and its economy crippled. Lloyd George's position. Britain wanted peace, but not one that would destabilize Europe. He feared that if Germany was punished too harshly, it might lead to future conflict or a communist revolution. These conflicting goals turned the conference into a political battlefield. Germany's exclusion. Although Germany was the main subject of the treaty, it was not allowed to negotiate. German delegates were only invited near the end, handed the treaty, and told to sign it. They protested, calling the treaty unfair, but they had no choice. If they refused, the Allies would resume the war. The Treaty of Versailles, the key terms. After months of debate, the Treaty of Versailles was completed in June 1919. It was harsh, extensive, and shaped the future of Europe. Some key terms included: 1. War Guilt Clause, Article 231. Germany had to accept full responsibility for starting the war. This was the foundation for all penalties that followed. 2. Harsh reparations. Germany was required to pay massive financial compensation, billions of dollars, for the damage caused during the war. These reparations crippled Germany's economy. 3. Territorial losses. Germany lost 13% of its land and millions of its population. Alsace-Lorraine was returned to France. The Polish corridor split Germany into two parts. All overseas colonies were taken. 4. Military restrictions. Germany's army was reduced to 100,000 soldiers, with no tanks, no aircraft, and no submarines. The navy was limited, and the Rhineland was demilitarized. 5. League of Nations. The treaty created the League of Nations, a new international organization intended to maintain peace. Ironically, the United States never joined, despite Wilson's efforts. How the treaty shaped Germany. The reaction in Germany was explosive. The German people felt humiliated. They believed they had been betrayed by their leaders and stabbed in the back, as many did not understand how close Germany had come to collapse in 1918. The Treaty of Versailles became a symbol of national shame. Economic crisis, unemployment, and political chaos followed. The harsh terms created anger, resentment, and a desire for revenge. These wounds would later be exploited by extremist groups, most notably by Adolf Hitler, who used the treaty as a rallying cry to gain support. Many historians believe that the Treaty of Versailles, instead of guaranteeing peace, planted the seeds for World War II. A world hoping for peace. Despite its flaws, the treaty reflected the fears and hopes of a world traumatized by war. Leaders wanted to prevent another catastrophe, but their conflicting goals created a peace built on compromise and bitterness. On the 28th of June 1919, exactly 5 years after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the event that sparked WW1, Germany's representatives reluctantly signed the Treaty of Versailles in the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles. The Great War was officially over. But the consequences of the treaty would echo for decades. Conclusion. The price of peace. The Treaty of Versailles ended World War I, but it did not end conflict. It shaped borders, destroyed empires, and created new nations. It brought hope through the League of Nations, yet also sowed the seeds of greater tragedy. It was the treaty that ended one world war, and set the stage for another.